To confess, I feel like it's Christmas morning. Santa has come and somebody's about to let us open our presents. I have lived in this valley my whole life and have never gone through a process like this. I want to thank the over 100 people who participated in the 6 roundtables in our steering committee over Monday and early Tuesday morning. Your input, your insights to help these gentlemen produce this is invaluable to this process. But you know, I got to hear and be reminded what a wonderful place I live. And if nothing else comes from this, it's been a great experience. I want to thank my Main Street family. Some of them have been here all week. I'd like you to stand up in the back, please. Stand up. They have traveled from across the state to support this process with us. And Sarah Hansen, our state coordinator. Our Main Street family is amazing, and I appreciate their support. All right, here we go. I want to sincerely thank the efforts, the incredible care these 2 gentlemen have taken in our community the last 3 days. Remember, 3 days when you see this. So please give an amazing Wenatchee Valley welcome to Muldrow.
Linda, the whole time we've been here, and everyone at our roundtable kept commenting on what a healthful community it was, and then you make the reference in the introduction to Santa being here. I looked at Ben's belly and looked at my belly and thought, gee, I didn't dress appropriately for the occasion. We're thrilled to be here. It's been an extremely fun 3 days. We really want to thank you for your candor and the input that you've given. Ben and I are going to tag team this presentation, so we'll sort of go back and forth on a few things. The presentation will be recorded, and we will do our very best to get it uploaded as soon as possible to YouTube so that you can watch it over and over again during those late nights when you want to go to sleep. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben to go into some of the background material and the input that we received, and then we'll go from there. So, Ben?
All right, are you ready?
Yes!
All right. This is going to be the most entertaining 3 or 4 hours of your life. Like, gotta be fun. You know, one of the things that I always like to do is we have to start with what you're currently using. And when we look at the amazing dynamic of the different pieces that exist out there, this is funny. Anybody recognize some of these? Okay, so in the top right-hand corner, we have got the logo that the city's been using. We asked over and over again, what is that yellow? What does the yellow symbolize, and the lines? And I mean, we heard everything from, well, I mean, I think it's just a golden delicious, to maybe it's a sideways sun, to honestly, we have no clue what that means, and we've never noticed it. But we know that it's on the manhole covers. So, you know, that's always fun. And then, of course, we look at downtown Wenatchee's logo. And, you know, it's always good to incorporate a frown into your identity. And, you know, and sadly, you know, being in the business that we're in, and I hate to be this way, but, you know, when you work with downtowns a lot, you make a lot of comparisons between downtowns and shopping malls. And strangely enough, the shopping mall right across the river has the exact same graphic. So at least you're working together. Yeah. So good job there. You know, one of the biggest things, and I think one of the identities that we see over and over again, is that's connected to the apple. And whether it is the city of Wenatchee, whether it is the logo in the background of the city of East Wenatchee. Even the mayor Chelan shared his business card, and they have an apple as well. You know, so it is obviously an image that is very, very prevalent. What we'd like to do is we'd like to give you some tools that help you grow and go even farther. Now, we heard a lot about the sign. And what we actually have here is we have 4 generations of this sign announcing Wenatchee as the apple capital of the world. And it started out with the top left-hand corner. And that sign, I think, went up in the 40s, 30s, 40s. I think that's the time frame. And then we have several different iterations. It next moved to the big apple shape, and then the rectangular billboard style that came down. And I believe this is the one that everybody was scared when it went away that nothing was going to go up. And this is when you realized that the Apple Capitol was a message that some people in the community thought was deserving of pitchforks and fires if it was to go away. So we see the new sign that has come back, and actually I came in late on Sunday night. The sign was lit up. It makes a very, very welcoming entrance into the community. So realizing that transition as those kind of went through. But then as we did research, I mean, some of the interesting things that we found along the way, I found an image of a Wenatchee bag. Now, it's made in Minnesota, so I'm not sure exactly how that connection was made, but it was an apple picking bag. Okay, well that reinforces. But then one of the big things I think that we all know and that we've all seen is the absolutely stunning art that's connected with the Apple labels. And over and over and over again, we were able to find different labels that connected to this place, but brands from all over, sometimes very patriotic, sometimes not so patriotic. It really, the brands of these different produce and fruits that were taken around the world, it was kind of interesting. I mean, when you look at it, anywhere from jet boats to Native Americans to flowers to cowboys. But all of them create a style and a personality that very much connects to this whole mindset of Apple Capital of the world. And it had a consistent color system. It had a consistent design approach. So it made a lot of sense for that to lend some inspiration for us.
And at the same time that these labels were out, promoting the apples, was at the very same era in America where we were promoting our national parks through the railroads with posters with a similar style ethic to them, with the bold colors and the bright graphics. And so there's a real continuum between how we were promoting getting out and enjoying the outdoors during this time period, and also the produce that comes from this time period. So it's interesting in that the graphic presentation of this relates very much to that. And then we heard you say in the input sessions that, the two themes that really run very strong is that agriculture is alive and well here and still thrives, whether it's viticulture now, whether it's, serving a pint of beer at a brew pub, or the traditional agriculture with the fruits. But that goes hand in glove with the recreational activities that you enjoy and how many options you have where you can ski in the morning and golf in the afternoon. So certainly there's a similarity between those two.
Right. So the first thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to use color and define color as a connecting tool in our brand system. And the funny thing was, as much as you all repeated Apple Capital over and over and over again, the predominant color in almost every identity system was blue. No greens, no reds, but blue over and over and over again. So we wanted to go through and define a system. We defined 8 different colors. And the 8 colors are derived from both products as well as experiences and images. So we'll kind of just move left to right. Obviously, we've got 2 different shades of red, a dark red and a lighter red, cherries, apples. Move into some oranges and yellows that, take us from apricots into some pears, but also that sun, 300 days of sun that we heard about so much. And we understand exactly where that message is marketable. Then keep on down that path, and anywhere from some pears to apples into the outdoors, we've got a couple shades of green. And those help us to really kind of add some real depth to it. And then we even move into a very light variation of purple and then blue, both from grapes and the sky. And all of these, what it allows us to do is it allows us to have a very, very robust color palette where we can use these colors to connect dots. We can use these colors to denote that things are coming from the same place. And we can also help to make people realize that, hey, even though we might have different organizations that are putting on events or activating spaces or stewards of particular areas, this is one region and we are sharing one experience that can be had here. And it doesn't really matter where you are as long as you're here, if that makes sense. Now, after we define the color, we start to go into the message. And the message is the place where we start to wrap our arms around all the things that you told us over and over and over again. And we heard stories, I think, of immense pride in this place and immense connection to this land. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to try to help you string together all of those positive things that you shared with us into a way that we can start to tell this story. And we do that with what we call a brand statement. And since Tripp wordsmithed this, he always gets to read that. And at the end, feel free to cry, weep, hug your neighbors, and cheer as loud as possible.
Thanks, Ben.
That might advance on the...
Oh, just hit advance here. In the brand statement, we did want to try and capture everything, and they're typically fairly long. They're designed to be pieced apart and used in increments so that as you're messaging to maybe different audiences, you can use different pieces of it. Taken together, you can also use it. It's really different than a vision statement or a promise. It's a lot longer than that. So just bear with me as we go through this part of it. We are Wenatchee. We're at a confluence of two rivers, the rushing Wenatchee and the mighty Columbia, in a land enveloped by the foothills and towering peaks of the Cascades. We're a place where the Earth's geology is ever present. We have harnessed the power of our waters to power the West and cultivated our valley to give the world fruits from our orchards and wine from our vineyards. The spirit of our people is the result of a place that knows how to produce. We put faith in the land to make the harvest each year and have innovated ways to share our bounty across the nation and world. Our innovation does not stop with the land. We invest in our children and believe that education is the key to our future success. We live a life of abundant choices. Underneath sunny skies, we take to the slopes, the rivers, the trails, and the loop to ski, kayak, hike, and bike. Our streets and trails are filled with sculpture, bringing art to our people. We're a small town to some and a big city to others. But to all, whether visitor or local, we provide a way to escape from everyday routines. We're a place where a choice made history on the first trans-Pacific flight. We're a place where a community chose to rally behind a vision to build a dam that would free the West. We have made a choice to embrace the future through our past in a building twice scrapped that will emerge as a market that will bring us together. The choices here are as plentiful as the orchards are fruitful. We invite you to choose this place to visit, to explore, or to stay. We are Wenatchee, Washington. What will you pick today?
That kid is good, isn't he? The thing is, we kept talking over and over again about the multitude of choices, the options that were available, and honestly, the solution ended up being unbelievably simple. And that tends to be the case. The simple solutions are the best solutions for complicated situations. This whole idea, you have chosen to let this place be known by this connection with apples. And what do you do with apples to enjoy them? You pick them. And picking your own path, choosing your own experience, and crafting your own life. That is the thing that we heard over and over again. So let's tie together this historic time period. Let's tie together the time period that is seen over and over through our arts, through our greatest accomplishments, through that kind of collection of the best that this country has to offer to the people. And let's tie it in with this message with, taking advantage of the fruits of our land. And all of it kind of culminates into the inspiration of telling the story.
And usually we tend to not zoom in on a time period, but here it really, so much of what you were doing was not hearkening back to a particular time period here where so much pivotal activity was happening. The damming of the Columbia River, the orchards, the flight, all of those things, the architecture in your downtown, the Art Deco, all of that harkens back to a really interesting time in America we were coming through the Depression, we were dealing with that, but there was a time of optimism as well, because this was a part of the country where optimism could still be. And so that's really what was part of the inspiration for this as well.
Do you want to talk about the retro too?
Well, I think, we grappled with this too, because some of what we heard is in the metro market, the 206ers that we've come to call them.
Lovingly.
And is that we did hear this idea that this was a throwback and that this was retro. And I thought, well, my initial reaction was, well, gosh, that's somewhat, demeaning to this community to call it a throwback. But in reality, when you look back at that era, the things you were doing were setting a course for the future of this community. And why not acknowledge that era and sort of pull it forward in the messaging that we're doing today and freshen it up and get it back out in front of everybody.
So, where do we go from here? Through the identification of color and the formulation of message, it leads us into how can we start to stitch our message together visually. And we wanted to look to that Apple label as inspiration, and we landed with something kind of like this. And what it allows us to do is, I'm going to kind of jump through to the next one, because what's fun about it is they were masters in the 30s of telling a lot of information in a small amount of space. And the thing that you have to do is you have to tell your story, and you have to tell people that there is more than they know. And what's kind of interesting about this is through the colors, we've got a lot of flexibility. We've been able to bring in this campaign tagline, but we've also been able to maintain the Apple capital of the world. Your logo is intended to help connect all of these experiences. Believe it or not, hold on to your seat. It doesn't have to contain the picture of an apple in it. And you'll start to see as we go through how we are starting to connect together the resources and experiences that you have. One of the things that we heard a lot about was the fact that as a community, you are also changing culturally. And you have to make sure that you are engaging all facets of your community so that you can continue to grow together as one. So being able to take that message and expand it out so that members of your community can really adopt and kind of tie into that. But then where it also gets fun is just the simple expandability. How you can change a couple things and all of a sudden you have your own subset that begins to connect to the downtown district or to different areas of the community. With the same design style and design approach, we also can give the city itself its own variation using the same typeface, the same colors. But we have to remember the city is a governmental body. They tax people, which isn't always fun. They make decisions that aren't always popular. And that's fine. That's what they're there for. But it is absolutely okay for them to kind of have their own little space, their own identity that they own. And we don't want to muddy it up too much with the identity we're using to promote the place. It's just like a college or university has an academic logo and an athletic logo. And, you know, heaven forbid you have a horrible football season, you don't want it to affect admissions and vice versa. Now, same thing when we jump over to East Wenatchee. They've got this great identity that they're using with Miss Vidal and an apple that is also the globe. They can adopt some of these same typefaces because a lot of the consideration with their identity has been paid to the graphics, but not to the words themselves. So you can show connection while also maintaining your own unique identity. Now, what we also want to talk about, though, is the fact that we have destination identities and we also have organizational identities. So the Downtown Association, Chamber of Commerce, and different groups like that, those are organizations, and they might market different parts or destinations in the area. And we've got a lot we still want to kind of dig in on this stuff. But again, making sure that each of our destinations also has organizational identities that can go into that and be able to reinforce that. And we'll be able to work with them directly. But again, you have to remember, what's an organizational identity for? It's not to promote the place. It's to promote the things that you do, to enhance awareness of what you do. It's also to promote membership, because a lot of these are membership-based models where they need the revenue from membership, and people need to understand what they're investing in. So being able to kind of secure that and be able to give both of those organizations, which are economic development entities in the community and in the region, the ability to operate in that sphere, but also promote their destination. Now, we've got a couple other things that we wanted to talk about. One was once we start to move into collateral and the collateral material. And one of the things that I feel like I've seen over and over again is the way that you as a community have integrated art into so many of the things that you do. And one of the things that we're excited about is we feel like this platform gives you the opportunity to continue down that road, and with each and every year, you're making your own personality more and more dynamic. So, you know, we always talk about shopping and dining guides and brochures and that kind of thing, and you have a wealth of resources. You have an entire tree's worth of materials that you can give to a visitor. There's a lot of paper out there, but there's not necessarily a lot of consistency. So we're going to be making some recommendations on how to consolidate and bring that stuff together. But one I want you to think about is we start to move those promotional guides onto an annual production schedule. And the cover of that guide changes each year and is promoting a new piece of original art. And to illustrate this, we pulled a local watercolor that was the winner of 2011 Best in Show at a Plein Air competition here in town. And it was a great picture of Saddle Rock. But I just wanted to illustrate that, you know, with this, you can start to incorporate art into this, and this can simply serve as your cover. And then with each year, because that art would change, the whole piece would have a new feel. Also, we heard a little bit about the new resident package, and got a copy of that yesterday, or the welcome packet that's available. It's delivered in a craft paper envelope, and it's got a lot of different pieces in there. But we always want to think about, how do we set that tone? And how do we really control the message through the whole aspect of the conversation? So we wanted to design a series of labels. And these labels can actually be shared from multiple organizations. But having really nice envelopes that kind of almost have a wood grain printed on it, so it looks a little like an apple crate. And then you put the label on that envelope. Again, in every sense of what we're doing and how we're communicating, we can replicate that same feel of this design aesthetic. Now, in addition, we heard a lot about the streetscape in downtown Wenatchee, and it's, 22 years old? And one of the things that was integrated in that first streetscape was wayfinding signage. And you probably have all seen it. It has an extremely ornate logo at the top with apples and pears and every fruit ever grown in the region, I believe. But that pretty much is the only place that identity is used. So a very, very simple thing that could be done is simply create a graphic that can update that sign. Go in and put that semicircular graphic in there, bring that identity into the system of all of our marketing in the community. And then as you identify new destinations and new needs for signage, you can take that same design approach. And the thing that I really want you to think about with signage is signage does not have to be municipal specific. As people travel around this region, they consider themselves to be in a place known as Wenatchee. You can create some variation in that signage, but I can tell you that it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to have a dramatic shift in the way you're telling visitors how to navigate on each side of the river. So if you can deploy something that has a similarity in approach, it helps the people that are unfamiliar with the place with how best to experience the place. But then in addition to that, we wanted to look at banners as well. And I felt like Trips, he was like, so what are you going to do with banners? Because we can't really turn it on its side. I want you to start to think about banners very much as an extension of art on the avenues. I want you to think about each pole as a gallery and begin to incorporate custom art into the banners and really use that as an extension of the way that art makes its way into the community. And, you know, this is something that we've seen a lot of communities that do these. It's actually kind of a fun project. We've had, there's a community in West Virginia that what they did was they actually auctioned off the original art. So they had a call for artists. They commissioned 36 artists to create art in a certain size specification. And then after they created it, there was an auction. And each artist split the profit with the organization on whatever their art made. And the revenue the organization made from the auction went to pay for the banners. And it was a situation where, guess what? We're not asking artists to do something for free. We're helping to have a vehicle where they're getting paid as well. But then where it really starts to get fun to me, and this is where we started to do some stuff that we haven't ever really done before, is with the actual advertising. How do we get the message out? How do we get something that will resonate both with the local and also in larger markets? And we wanted to take that whole idea of this Apple label and really kind of connect it. So we've got this combination between a photo as well as original art. And do I have pedal? I do have pedal wrong. Sorry. What? They're selling things, Trip. It's that pedal. It's the other form of pedal. You know, one of the things that you want to do is, yeah. Thanks, big brother. Always point out the spelling errors. You know, with your advertising, you have to very succinctly convey that there's a multitude of options. And, you know, whether it's talking about selling things or pedaling bikes or paddling boats or having dinner in any of the Thai restaurants all around the region, downstream or downhill or downtown, everything from water to skiing into shopping, we're starting to connect the outdoor experiences and outdoor options with the communities. That's one of the biggest things that we have to be mindful of is we want to promote our natural resources, but we have got to connect them with our economy. Because if people come here and use our resources but don't leave any of their resources behind, we're not really making the most of that impact and that effort. And then even starting to use some of the marketing to push some of the things that you all have identified as something that you want in the community, whether it's an extended nightlife, whether it's more options in the evening and dinner time. You can start to use this same message to continue to talk about multitude, but also kind of shift what kind of experience you'll have. But you can see that this standard creates a very, very easy way for us to start to tell these stories. And we were talking a little about the flight of the Miss Vidal. And, to me, I think the thing that hit me that was so very interesting was, the flight originally, they intended to land in Seattle. And believe it or not, when they flew over, Seattle had rain. So they decided to keep flying. And they flew past Wenatchee and East Wenatchee, and they headed over towards Spokane, and they had rain too. And then the pilot said, well, let's go and let's sit back down home, because it's always clear there. He was from here, and he knew that it was always clear. And this part of history is your part of history, because he had a comfort of understanding the place that he knew was home. And that's why that story is so cool, and being able to take that and really help to craft that personality of your place. But then also not only talking about the history, but getting excited about the future. Yes, very excited about the future. We got to take a tour of Pybus Market, and you should be very, very excited. But I want to give you a word of warning. If your community is anything like our community, you get very, very excited about whatever the newest thing is. And that excitement fuels that newest thing until it's replaced by the next newest thing. Pybus Market is going to be a huge, huge asset to your community. And it's going to be an asset that's going to bring people from outside in. But it is up to you to make sure that you craft the experience and you maximize the impact of this significant investment and this significant development in your community. You have to make sure that the market fuels the overall economy and fuels the overall experience and the rediscovery of downtown and the rediscovery of business and the products created in the region. So this is a very exciting opportunity, but you have to know it's not a, if you build it, they will come. There's a lot of work to do after it opens to make sure that those people really have the positive impact that this community deserves. We always like the fun little messages for the places where you go somewhere else and maybe don't have the vacation experience that you thought you were going to have. Has anybody ever been to Disney World? Does anybody want to go back to Disney World? We have decided that Disney World would be a great place if you didn't have to take your children. Sadly, that one's a hard one to pull off a lot of the times. But, simply being able to really tell all those experiences and understand the ones that need to be cultivated. We heard a lot about Mission Ridge and people coming to Mission Ridge, but are they also exploring the community? Are we having the impact that we should be having? And then just also thinking about the overall dynamic marketing that can occur between the resources and amenities that you do have. One of the messages that I felt like I heard over and over again during the process was, how many places can you go ski in the morning and golf in the afternoon? And, as we drive around, we constantly are seeing all these different opportunities to connect with the place. I drove up to the airport yesterday, and, it's like you're driving down the road and you see a little green sign that's got a golf bag on it and points you out this way, and then drive a little bit farther and there's a little blue sign with a picture of a glider and it says straight ahead. It's a glide. Okay, so seriously, on the same street I can glide and golf. that is the kind of message that we want to be able to tell, and those are the things we want to share. In addition, I think one of the biggest things for any community or place is we have to be very aware that people do not keep themselves up to date with things that change quickly. And I talk about this a lot with buy local campaigns. And I have my own kind of thoughts on buy local campaigns. I feel like a lot of times we'll launch a buy local campaign, and the way that it'll come off to a consumer is kind of like, please buy local so my kids can eat supper. And, buy local by guilt is not what we want to do. We need to help people to understand that this area, this entire region, the businesses that are here, they are fueled off of your support, but they are constantly changing. Just like an annual harvest, just like, going out there and picking things, it constantly changes, and it's up to you to explore it. It's in your best interest to know what's in your own backyard. And that really is the personality and nature that we want to cultivate when we do a buy local campaign, is it behooves you to explore your own community, because you'd be amazed by the fantastic stuff that you have here. And I'm going to tell you, I spent a good bit of the day yesterday as a streetwalker. Not that kind, the more productive kind. And I got to go in a lot of businesses. And I have to tell you, typically when you walk into a retail establishment, the moment that they find out that you're there working and trying to make something happen in the district, the floodgates open and you get attacked. I had the most pleasant experience yesterday that I think I have ever had in my entire career. Over 300 communities, 30 states. The business owners in this area are as nice as I have ever come across. It was absolutely amazing. You all should applaud yourselves. And I mean, I cannot. I know a lot of you probably are like, yeah, he tells everybody that. No, I don't. I tell most people that they are rude, and that they really are. And by nature, I mean, when you sit in a store all day long and nobody buys anything, but they come in to complain to you, or you've had your business open 14 years and they walk in and they're like, this is amazing. How long have you been here? Well, I've been here longer than you've lived here. So, glad you finally decided to find me. And so it is a very frustrating dynamic, but I applaud this community. You all are unbelievably welcoming. And from an infrastructure perspective, you are prepared to have a greater economic impact from utilizing the people that are coming to this region. Your infrastructure of your business community is prepared to treat them with hospitality and have them leave this place with a fantastic experience. Again, kind of constantly, this is my first picture of an apple in any ad. I was real deliberate with that. But, it is kind of interesting. Trip made the point, you all said to us agriculture, talked about agriculture a whole lot. And the thing that we shared was, you absolutely, what you have is agriculture, but you have an experience-based agriculture. The thing that you offer is something that is a very positive product. Where we're from, we don't have a lot of soybean tours or soybean tasting rooms or, people sending crates of soybean back home to their family. So, and it reminds me of a business that Tripp and I have worked with up in Waterbury, Vermont. And the owner likes to talk about it as agritainment. And there's a whole facet of the business that is also very intriguing on a consumer level. and being able to kind of take that and cultivate that. You grow it, but let's make sure that we celebrate it. Let's make sure that the overall experience, from wine to beer to food, is something that we can really experience and something that can leave a lasting impression. Then also just promoting the overall culture. We got to look a little bit into the Northwest, is it Northwest Mariachi Festival? Is that right? There are some amazing things happening in this community. And being able to really celebrate all of those cultures and all of that rich art and life that is here is something that you should be proud of. And, you know, again, just really kind of taking some of those messages that we heard. This was shot inside Pybus Market yesterday. You are true. The 300 days of sunshine, you're delivering so far. But what that does is it allows people to connect with the place. And I was amazed at how many people I saw out yesterday. You know, whether I was walking, I walked a good portion of the loop. I was actually surprised how many people were out yesterday morning before sunrise over at Saddle Rock. And people really are trying to connect with the place, and it lends for a very healthy life. But then also just families. This was right before our tour of Pybus, looking down at the Riverwalk or Riverfront Park. And, you know, you capture what I'm pretty sure was a mother and daughter talking on the bench, and then a father and daughter walking around the park. And, you know, to me, this is one of the best kind of captures of the values that you all talked about, the things that you really loved about this place. Being able to provide things that the business communities can start to tie into is very, very important. So through a design aesthetic, through an approach to message, we can begin to arm our businesses with the ability to tell this story and kind of repeat this message over and over again. I spelled petals right this time. But you know, as you can kind of see, this imagery, being able to show off the different assets in the community, and you know, all these pictures that you're seeing were taken yesterday. I mean, it is a pretty amazing place that you call home. Showing off those different assets that you have, things that you might not necessarily consider to be all that impactful because you see it all the time. The Cascadian is something that's very, very interesting. It's not an extremely tall building. I mean, obviously you have buildings much taller than that, but it is unbelievably impactful on the landscape. And it almost helps you to kind of orient where you are as you travel around, because you've got this big building with these big letters on it. And it just, you always kind of keep your orientation by it. But again, just kind of showing off those special times, those special sites, the growth and the change that's occurring, fantastic business community, just the different stores that you have and the things that you can discover. One of the most fun things I think I came across was I was in the shoe store and saw a belt that I fell in love with. And then I was over here in Tumbleweed, and there was this awesome bag. And like everywhere I asked about it, I'm like, where's this stuff made? And they're like, oh, that's Dustin. I'm like, is Dustin a brand? No, he's a guy. He lives here in town. He makes this. And, you know, it's absolutely fantastic, this connection between people making stuff and being able to get it. And you know, I mean, that's the type of thing that you take with you, and it really leaves an impression about the community. One of the most amazing garden store / shipping stores I've ever seen in my life. That's an odd combo, but they're doing it the right way for sure. And the art that you have in the community is absolutely stunning. And I'm sure that those of you that were instrumental in making this happen knew what you were doing all along. But it really does promote to the outsider a sense of exploration. It's almost like you don't want to stop. You want to keep going because you're not sure what the next thing you're going to come across is. And that is an unbelievably huge dynamic to have. And, all of a sudden, everything from industrial type imagery all the way out to experience imagery. I mean, you can have a picture of a train and then you can go to a picture of flowers. And, all of these things really start to come together. And the big question that you want to leave in not just the visitor's mind, but in your own resident's mind is what's next. You live a life of bounty and a life of plentiful choices, and you live the life that other people escape to for their vacations. And that's really the message that we all wanted to share. And we feel like it's a platform that will allow you to capture those values that you hold dear as you begin to move forward and realize your next vision in the future. So with that, it is your turn. Any questions, any thoughts, any comments? I think the big thing that I hope that you see, first of all, is being able to tell your story is not a one-shot deal. You are a place that is too rich of experience to try to tell everything with one shot. It's going to be a series of stories, a series of messages, and it's going to need everybody being able to work together and to be able to very easily tie into something that is connected and makes sense.
Did you convince yourself to come here?
Absolutely. Hopefully that came through. This community, we have had so much fun while we've been here. And, between the food and Tripp had a beer, I think. I did. And just everything. I mean, it is one of those things. I found myself last night. It was about 5:30, and I was taking pictures around some of the different parks along the river. And I mean, I don't exercise much. You can probably tell, but I had the desire just to walk. It's like, man, I wish I was not on this schedule because I really just want to walk. I want to enjoy more of it. And absolutely, I think that the point that really kind of hit me in the brand statement was you are at this very unique place where to some places you are the epitome of what small town greatness is. And then to others, you are the big city that they can go to get what they need. And that is an unbelievably special place to be. And there aren't a lot of those out there anymore just because of the dynamic of transportation and infrastructure. So, we really, it was not hard. It was not a hard sell for us.
Other questions or thoughts? Is it working for you? Again, it's one of those things where I think a lot of times, I don't know, I've done it for myself. We always kind of joke about how we would never brand our own hometown because we're too close to it. And luckily they would never hire us because we're not smart because we're from there. They got to hire somebody from Toronto to brand them because they're that's where they're smart enough. But the thing that is so very interesting is everybody knew what your values were. You knew the things that you loved. And it was simply trying to figure out, how do we connect the dots? How do we very easily speak about this abundance and be able to tell about this richness of opportunity and choice that we have here, and do it in a way that fits our character
and do it in a way where it makes sense and it's easy to expand and grow from.
But I think the other piece of this is in looking at all that's out there that's being promoted right now, we really wanted something that would make you pop and make you really identified in this market. This market offers so much. There's so many wonderful, great communities. And then we heard through the roundtable session, there is sometimes that inclination, you know, that Wenatchee is the place that you go through on the way, you know, to get to that spot. But then we also heard this other piece that you're the hub. And we wanted to reinforce that hub mentality rather than the pass-through mentality. So, any other thoughts or questions? Thank you. It's been wonderful working with you. And if you have anything you want to talk to us afterward or just say, you know, any other misspellings, be sure and catch us. And our plan next is we'll be working with Linda and her partner Shiloh, you know, at the chamber on reviewing and getting feedback and then doing revisions as necessary. We have additional print pieces that we'll be pulling together. And then all of this, if you agree this is the right direction as a community, we'll package it all up and deliver it to you in a complete set of style guide, all the resources, everything you've seen, the layout for the ads and so forth. And so that'll all be put together, and we're doing it cloud style, not now.
He loves to say in the cloud.
I like saying, well, because
does.
you made so much fun of me because I used CD-ROM up until about 6 months ago.
Yeah,
so.
He was still talking. Yeah, and the thing that I want to reinforce. I mean, we typically when we go into a community and we do photography, my goal is to see if maybe I can get about 45 or so shots that I consider to be magazine worthy shots. I have 134 in my folder here. And I think that just kind of speaks to the nature of the community and the region. It was interesting. I spent a good bit of time yesterday over in East Wenatchee, and in the public meeting on Tuesday or on Monday night in East Wenatchee, they said I can't remember. It might have been Mayor. I can't remember who said it. It's like we get the good views over here. Y'all just get to look at us. And, you know, I mean, it is very, very interesting to kind of see that whole dynamic. But, man, that trip out to the airport, it's kind of like you get up over and then everything, it just feels like it changes. And all of a sudden you're just surrounded. And I actually got a picture of, I think, the one of two flights that left yesterday. I was there, like, in perfect time. And but no, it really is. You live in a stunning, stunning place. And you deserve to have the people that come visit you be people that you want to have here. You know, it's like, it's not about just opening your house up. It's about inviting the kind of people that you want to be house guests.
And I do have a question.
Yeah.
We've been to 300 plus communities and presented a like package to other organizations. What recommendation or advice might you give us as a community as to what we do with this now? You're obviously going to give us a great package.
That's great.
What do we do with it to bring the communities together?
You're in a unique position now because of how you're reorganizing here in the community. So you definitely have some key holders, I guess, and we consider, you know, Linda a key holder, Shiloh a key holder, the mayors of both communities and their staffs as key holders. And really what we would advise in this situation is perhaps convene a branding task force that has representatives from each of the partner groups and say which pieces of these will we run with and what pieces will we go with next. We found that to be most effective, particularly when we have a lot of different stewards. And you are going to have, and you're probably going to end up having more than one brand steward, but you do want to keep that fairly tight, you know, among a group that represents each of the partners. And then that way each partner can help get that brand out with all of the constituent groups, because the chamber's got a board, downtown's got a board, you know, there's a council in each community, and there's staff that's talented in both communities. So we really do think that's probably going to be the best
And
approach.
one of the things that I'm going to try to tackle, and it's something that Trip does a lot in communities, is it creates what we call a strategy board. And because of some of the issues and some of the tasks that we know are coming up here, we want to see if we can do one of those here. And what it is simply, it's a one-page kind of guideline. It's a one-page set that says, between now and the end of 2013, what should we do and who should be in charge of it? Then what should we do in 2014? And then maybe, the next 3 years.
Did you buy the URL?
No, not yet. Not yet.
That's important. I mean, step number one, and nobody in this room do it except for someone who's in charge. Nobody hold it hostage, but whatwillyoupicktoday.com is available. And so we really do recommend, that's one of the first things you do is buy that URL and get that in place.
Yeah.
So,
Do it from your phone.
and again, that doesn't mean that may be the main URL, but it could be one that you're redirecting to with particular marketing pieces as you launch this identity system.
And I think the other thing to really look at for this community in particular is the understanding that when you talk about effective marketing of this region and the positive impact of maximizing your resources, you have to understand that there is a place for diplomacy and then there's a place for effectiveness. And I always like to pick on chambers, sorry Shiloh, but I like to pick on chambers because chambers are some of the worst for it because, they might have started out as, I was working in one, Batesville, Arkansas. And, it used to be the Batesville Chamber, and that's what everybody called it. And then next thing you know, it's like, well, we want to enhance our relevance, which means they want to increase their membership. So they became the Batesville area. Then they became the greater Batesville area. And then next thing you know, they have to have an accordion fold on their card to be able to fit their logo on it because they have so many different names. Yet when you ask people, they say, oh, it's the Batesville Chamber. Because the identity is one thing, but the diplomatic name is another. When people are here, they do know the name Wenatchee. They don't know as much about the difference between Douglas County and Chelan County, nor do they really care. I mean, it's, as a visitor, it's not going to make a real big impact on them. They know the sense of place, and they know the connection with the Wenatchee River, the Wenatchee Valley, Columbia River. Those are the names that they hear and that they really kind of think about. So as you deploy, just really always put the overall effectiveness at the forefront when you're talking about marketing and maximizing that economic impact.
Kept you in an hour.